Welcome back to the Elevate Your Best podcast. My name is Michael Danklos.
And I am Bruno Martins, and today we're going to talk about health and fitness, which is the first category for the LifeBook process.
We tend to talk about health and fitness this time of year as people are making New Year's resolutions of the weight that they're going to lose, the weight they're going to be able to lift, the nutrition, the diet plan that they're going to be on. So this is one of the most practical categories we can really touch into because you can tend to see relevant changes as well as you can have tangible things you can do. So we really wanted to talk about this month because it's, at least here in New England, it is very cold. So it can be some of the biggest challenge right now for those of us who like to be outside for our fitness plans to actually get some of that movement in. But why is this relevant? So literally the name of this business is Elevate Your Best, really relating to getting out and climbing mountains or figuratively climbing mountains in our life. So health and fitness is one of those foundational things of, I really like getting out on the trail. I like actually enjoying the mountain peaks that are in this area. And it's getting to a place where it's possible, as well as taking on the peak that's at the level that you're at right now. I'm not going to be climbing Kilimanjaro. I'm not going to be climbing in Denver, which is the mile-high city either, where the peaks are 14,000 feet, where it may take 2 or 3 days to get from the bottom to the top. That's not the level that I'm at. But I am looking to go to the next level. Here in New Hampshire, we have a lot of 4,000 foot and higher peaks. In fact, there's 48 of them. And one of my goals is to get the opportunity to climb to the top of those. But there still is this wide spectrum of what health looks like for each person here, depending on what your lifestyle is, as well as any disabilities you may have.
It's interesting, Michael, for you to mention health and climbing peaks and things like that. I know we are coaches, like I'm not actually a coach like you are. I'm helping you here. But there is so many people doing this job, and sometimes people are not prepared. And there was this instance, I believe, last week, where a coach here, he led 30-something people to climb a peak, and he didn't have the experience climbing things. He didn't know about, we were talking before starting the recording of the podcast about the temperature there, which is very cold, minus 20 something or 12 degrees. So it's 20 something, right? And in New England, where Michael is. And these people, this guy ended up creating an operation of 10 hours for the firemen to climb this mountain and rescue these people because of a storm, winds and storms and things like that. So we also need to know where we are going. Like you were saying, what is your condition and everything, the journeys. We need to know the preparation is very important. And I do believe that perhaps preparation related to our health and fitness might be the most important, because it's about the energies that we have and everything.
Absolutely. So it's the preparation and getting some help and support around that if you haven't already educated yourself. So for me, preparation is as much about education as it is having the right supplies. So knowing what you need to bring with you in order to do whatever that exercise is. If you are actually a cyclist, there are certain things you should bring along with you, though you probably shouldn't have a whole backpack because that's going to weigh you down while you're cycling. Going to be very different than if you're on a motorcycle. And if that's what your exercise, your movement is, awesome, do that. But you're going to be wearing different gear depending on what that is. Certainly this idea of guiding people up the side of a mountain and not being well prepared for that is one of the things that I'm holding off on, because I want to do some of my coaching practice on the side of a mountain, like literally taking people out and having them go through their own personal journey, literally and figuratively. But I'm also waiting to make sure that I get certified and get trained on outdoor survival and first aid and CPR in case someone does get injured. There's actually a meetup group out here that goes out on a regular basis. And like in the first part of the season, they teach people what to bring as a solo person, what is the different equipment, what's possible, because it's one of the biggest statements out here is there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad preparation. So in fact, it's easier in many ways here in New England to hike whenever there's snow on the ground than when there's not. Mostly because a
Interesting.
lot of the barriers, the roots, the rocks, all that kind of stuff that you can be dealing with are underneath the snow, and it's actually level instead. Ice, however, tends to be a problem. So with the proper equipment, you can actually achieve where you want to go. That's one of the things that I want to bring to this as we talk about health and fitness is get some training, read a book, watch a YouTube video, read some blog posts, go and actually talk to somebody who's actually done this before so that they can help guide you. If you're working out in the gym, there are several gyms out here that have trainers who can at least teach you how to use the equipment that they have. And there's lots of other programs out there to help you with proper form. And so that you, yes, are going to get the benefits, but also aren't going to injure yourself or to the point that you need to have search and rescue come out and actually take you off the side of a mountain in a helicopter or carrying you down on a stretcher. So it's really important to be prepared to go into that. And it's also being prepared is key, but also playing at the level you're at. It's okay, but it's a matter of, yes, stretching yourself a little bit is great because that's where we see growth, but it needs to be personalized to the level where you're at. If you are an extreme athlete, going up these small 4,000 footers, not a big deal. If you're used to hanging on by your fingers on the side of a cliff face, it's a walk in the park. If you're at an average level of fitness, make sure that you actually are taking on, hopefully with someone else, so they can help you along the route and help you stay at to take breaks and get hydrated, things like that. But it's also find that balance for you. And sometimes it's if it's been a while since you've been out there and exercising, start small. Going out and doing a 1 hour run when you haven't been exercising for a year or two is only going to lead to pain and possibly, versus maybe it's taking a 10-minute walk once or twice a week and then increase that to 15 minutes and then slowly build up your fitness through that. So
And just to wrap up on the thing there, it was actually lack of preparation, because the news that I read, they say that this is not season to climb that specific peak. So you see the level of amateur and amateurism. I don't know.
amateurism.
Non-professional. The lack of professional skills and preparations and commitment, even commitment and understanding. Like, I do drive a bike, Michael. I do drive a bike. And I have a friend that he bought a bike recently. And before he was like, I was asking to walk a little bit on my bike and I would exchange some ideas with him. And I would be like, dude, the most important thing for us that are driving bikes is that we need to respect whatever is bigger than us. And we need to take care of whatever is smaller than us. Whatever is bigger, we need to respect it. We need to keep distance. The bigger it is, the more distant we need to get. And we need to take care of the bike, take care of the people that are, you are on a motor vehicle. Don't be rushed. If there is someone trying to cross the street, stop and allow the person to cross the street. They are on their foot, on the heat of the equator. We need to understand where we are on the ladder. If we don't have experience, like Michael say, climbing mountains, go get training, go get the experience, find an outfitter that can help you. And this relates to the LifeBook process that we help people go through here. Because it's, if we have someone that has done the journey, that knows the tools, that recognize the path, that recognize the roadblocks, like Michael was speaking about the snow falling on the ground, I never imagined that the snow could help. But then he spoke about the roots and the things like that and rocks. And I was like, that's true. If you are climbing a mountain and like it's a hiking experience, there will be roots and the person can get hurt. And depending where they are, getting hurt can be quite serious, because in this case here in Brazil, it was a 10 hours operation. They couldn't send an helicopter. The fighters, I believe it's firefighters, they had to climb the mountain in the storm and put themselves at risk to go and get those people out there and get them back to safety. So We need to know where we are. We need to have a humbleness, be humble in order to understand what we are prepared to do, what we have experience to do, and what we don't have. And relating this more back, because all this relates to health and fitness, but bringing this closer, like you said, Michael, I have my experience being an amateur athlete, and I do fight jujitsu. I did exercises a lot, and I like to run. There was a day where I went to the square and I went to run, Michael, and I did some exercise. I did some burpees, and I didn't have a coach, an outfitter, somebody that was there to help me. And there were some people at the square, they had like coaches, and I had some people that I knew, they were physical trainers. And I even remember that in this day, one of these guy that I knew, he came to me and he was like, "You are doing these exercises?" Like he spoke something, "You need to be careful," something like that, because he was seeing me doing the exercise. So he knew that I was overdoing it. And when I was going home this day after doing lots of burpees and running like some 5 kilometers, I suddenly was going down a little inclination on the street, and I just felt this pain on my knee. And then it was starting to hurt, really hurt. And I was like, whoa. And then I went to jiu-jitsu the next week, and during a fight, it just had a lesion and a ligament. I have a knee that doesn't have the proper ligament because they are torn. So we need to have a preparation, and we need people to guide us. It's even for simple things like exercises that we could download an application on our phone and just follow a quick video. It's good to have someone that understands that better than us, that has a level of understanding to know when we are close to get hurt or something like that. So it's quite relevant to take care of our health and fitness, and it's quite relevant as well to be prepared about it and to have help, proper help for us to guide us into this process, so we actually strengthen our body and prepare it for a better life instead of hurting.
Absolutely. And the other thing too that I want to make sure that we express here is this is a core feature of what LifeBook speaks of is you don't have to do anything in particular. The idea is to get out and get movement for your fitness. And it really is, if that's, as Bruno said, he was doing running and he was doing burpees. That's what that was the exercises that he was enjoying, or at least that he had chosen for him. But it can be, dancing is a great way to actually get your heart rate up and actually get movement and flexibility and fluidity and balance and dexterity. It can be weightlifting. So it's a matter of choosing how you want to express yourself. What are the things that you want to be able to do is part of it. If there's a particular adventure you want to go on, what kind of exercises do you need to do to be better prepared for that? If you're going to be climbing the side of a mountain instead of actually hiking, working on grip strength may be really important so you can actually hang on to things when you're pulling yourself up. So looking at that and being prepared and taking it in small steps, but it's a matter of really looking at what are you going to enjoy while you're doing. So I don't necessarily particularly like going out and running. That's not really where for a long time, running hasn't really been something that I've enjoyed doing. I can sprint. At least whenever I was younger, I preferred to do those short sprint style of movements rather than long distance running. But I've also done a 5K. So was I competing with everybody else and out of the gate going full bore all no. But I took it at the pace that would best serve me. So this really is a way for you to determine what you want to be doing. So it's really having a personalized plan. If it's horseback riding, if it is bicycle riding, if it is weightlifting, if it is aerobics, if it is step, if it's high intensity interval training, pick something that you're going to enjoy doing. Because I think it's really important for us to find something that is movement. Even talking to my doctor, the American Heart Association here in the US talks about 150 minutes of activity in a week. If that's actually 3 segments of 50 minutes each, or if it is 5 segments of 30 minutes each, Just getting 150 minutes where your heart rate is elevated is really what they're looking for to actually keep cardiovascular health. So looking into what that looks like, and if you are at a high enough rate, I know that I use a Fitbit to track my heart rate, it's worth double the time. So if you're actually at a much higher heart rate for you, then it actually can have that. You can actually do it for 75 minutes if you're always at this peak level of your heart rate. Once again, though, it's finding out what works best for you on the movement side of things, because it's really relevant to what your body type is, what you enjoy doing, and where you want to actually see results.
And like you said, Michael, it's such a wide spectrum. There are so many options. You mentioned horseback. I didn't mention, I wouldn't imagine physical activity, horseback, but probably, yes, it requires some movement.
Have you ever been horseback riding?
No, Michael, didn't
Okay.
have this opportunity.
So I've had a couple of lessons a long time ago, and it is quite a workout for you with the horse, especially as you're learning. Maybe I certainly know as you get better and along the way, it's less of a workout for the rider, but your inner thighs and your feet and your back, because as you're learning to move with the horse, it does require a lot of core strength. So it certainly is, at least for me, when I was doing it, I was sore for, several days afterwards, because it does require using different muscles than I've been used to. Similar to ice skating, which is probably not something you do much in Recife, but it uses similar muscles because you're actually bringing your legs together, which most of the time we're motivating this way rather than trying to stay on top of something. So
Adduction or something like that. We do
yes.
that in jiu-jitsu, and it's something that one thing that I realize in jiu-jitsu is that people will get there and they have no idea that their bodies can do things that they can do or move in ways that they can move, like a hipscape, something that we do in jiu-jitsu. It's always something that people get complicated understanding because it's not a move they are aware of. But our bodies are incredible. They can do incredible things. And it's too much information for me to explain this. This is an idea that I can't just get and put out there. But our bodies can do incredible things. And we are just not used to do. And I like what you say, Michael, the way you mention it. Like even when you talk about the horseback, tightening your thighs and working our core, putting our bodies to move, elevating our heart rate, because this is how we evolved. We tend to forget. This is something that we need to remember. We need to create the culture to remember that we are animals, that we came from millions of years of evolution, struggling to survive, running after food and pleasure, running away from pain, and moving our bodies in extreme environments. Earth is an extreme environment. The more we look at Earth and we see, oh, this is so stable, it's natural and familiar to us. But if we take a closer look, we see that Earth is an extreme environment. It has been through some stable period. I believe we call it the Holocene. But if we take a look at everything that happens on Earth, it's important for us to understand that things can just greatly change. It's an extremely dynamic environment. And when things change, we are the best animals on this planet, the most adaptable, the ones that can greatly shape the environments, like what we are saying in the beginning, putting layers on our skins to go out into the cold and things like that. We can do these little manipulations that help us as well. And it's important for us to understand that our bodies, they can't go through this organism that we have that is surviving through so many generations. They can go through all this evolution, and then from, I don't know, 100, 200 years from now, we suddenly just don't have this active life anymore. And we are all on our shares the entirety of the day. And we are not doing anything, right, Michael, with our bodies. And it's completely like, for us to have an idea, even walking and running helps with our circulation, because when the blood goes out to our legs, it just loses so much strength. It requires so much from the heart that when we are walking and the muscle on our legs tighten, it helps our heart to pump back again the blood up, to pump to pump the blood back again up. So the muscles of our legs help with that. So our bodies were made to be on movement, like Michael said. And if we go into Taoism and breath exercise and how things work, we find some exercises that actually talk about the fluids in our brain, in our body. I don't know if you're aware of that, Michael, but we have the fluids on our body, mainly the blood, and moving the body and breathing. It's the way we move and the way we breathe is extremely important. And because we are sitting down and our legs are being pressured by our chairs, and it doesn't help, our breathing tubes, they are sometimes closer than they need to be, because if we had a better posture, they will be wider and more open for the circulation of air. All that is not helping us. And we need to understand that, understand the nature of ourselves, that we need this movement, that we need this freedom, understand our reality, the way we are living today, and change this into creating the method. Think about it, plan on it, prepare on it to compensate, because we need some compensation if we wish to live a healthier life.
Absolutely. So I'm not a doctor, and I'll want to disclaimer this. So I have had a little bit of training. The fluid you're talking about is less about blood and is more about lymph. Lymph fluid does not have a circulating process. The heart currently circulates blood, but the muscles, as you contract and with the skin with it, does allow lymph to circulate in your body, which is a lot of what our immune system is based on. So movement of lymph is actually really important. And it's, as you said, it's one way that we've adapted perhaps in many ways in the wrong direction, especially if you do an office job where you are sitting in a chair for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day or longer. It's one reason why I'm now at a standing desk. There is no chair here for me to sit on, because I want to stay moving and I want to actually stay active and working on my core rather than sitting down and actually getting more complacent. I know quite a few people who have a convertible desk that can actually do both. Awesome. If you have the ability to do that, the more you can stand, the more movement you can get, in my opinion. Really depends on the industry that you're in. If you're a cashier at a grocery store, you're standing all day long. In that case, make sure you have something that's going to protect you and check in on your posture and your body mechanics while you're doing that, because long standing can certainly affect feet and low back. I'm certainly feeling that myself as I'm adjusting to a standing desk.
And and the personalization side of things, like you mentioned in the beginning, there are so many options. And you mentioned dancing. I love dancing. Perhaps I will get into a dancing class one day, but I love dancing because dancing makes the body so beautiful. And every time I knew, like, for example, I went to a party this weekend, Saturday. I went ill on the Sunday. I ate something that what is the name, Michael? Toxic. What happened to me? I ate something that had a meat that was not so good, and I had
food poisoning.
Food poisoning. But in this party that I had, the problem, Michael, where I ate the thing, I met this girl. She was a ballet dancer. She said that she was like, her body was beautiful. And it's something that I always notice. We have a lot of dancers because of funk and things like that. People love to dance in Brazil. And it's something that I always notice. It's when I meet someone and they have this practice of dancing, it's usually the people that I find more attractive. And it's so good because it's good, it moves your body, it shapes your body, it makes you more attractive. It changes even your personality, because the person might get more delicate, it might change the way they approach things. Of course, jiu-jitsu changed the way I approach things. The way I talk with people change. Everything changes. And it's so good to be on optimal performance. And I don't know if you are finished with the personalized side of things. Do you have something to say? No? Because one thing that I noticed, Michael, which is impressive, and I always stretch myself. I try to go an extra mile. I don't try. I go an extra mile. I'm a person that goes an extra mile, not on everything, but I'm bringing this to my life ever more. And one area that I always can get this and pull into my life is jujitsu and exercise. And I sometimes even go to run. I don't go to run so much anymore, but I like to run. Today I have an understanding that I can hurt my body, so I try to hold a little bit. But even in jiu-jitsu and running, the thing that I want to say is this. Sometimes I go out, like one day I went to fight and I was late. I didn't realize my bike was on the mechanic. I forgot. And I was the one that was going to give the class. So I ran and I was like running, running. I even mentioned this on the podcast before, I remember. And when I went running, and it's impressive how we can use our energy. We are just not used to use our energy. We have energy. We have great amount of energy, so much energy. We're just not used to use it. And when I started running, and my psychological was like, oh, you are tired. Oh, and things like that. And I was like getting that stop, like the survival thing, like you are wasting your energies. I don't know, something related to survival. But I was like, no, let's continue. And then I continue, not so fast, but just let's move forward. And it's interesting because it always happens like this. We start and then we put a little bit of energy. Some people put too much energy in the beginning, and then they start to feel the pressure and they're like, oh, I'm getting tired, perhaps I should stop, and they relax a little bit. But if you, instead of stopping down here, we just continue, find a place where it's comfortable to continue, and we just continue running, like you run a 5 kilometers, so you might be aware of this, and then you just continue here, continue, and you feel tired. And then with time, what happens is that the feeling of I'm tired, I can't do this anymore, just goes away. And we just increase performance, and we get to better performance than we were. We don't feel that tired anymore. And we find a rhythm. Of course, you'll not be increasing this so much. You'll find a rhythm where your body is warm and it's running, and you just go. And then in this day, I went to the jiu-jitsu, and two-thirds of this run that I gave, Michael, I was like in this stage right here, maybe half, I don't know. And it was very good. And I got there at the gym. I fought more than everybody. After the training, everybody was tired. I fought with everyone because that was present, because I was running the class. So, and that was only white belts, by the way. So it was not too much of an effort. But the white belts, they were so much more tired than now, because it's all about energy, but it's also all about getting familiar with tapping into this energy and using it. And the only way to do so, it's exercising.
Well, and what I hear in a lot of what you said is it's the consistency of more pressing yourself a little bit further to actually increase your level of fitness. I know for me, this past year has not been a good fitness year. In fact, in my categories, that was the one that I ranked the lowest. I was working on many of the other categories, and it's a matter of getting back into the swing of things for this. And movement is really necessary, yes. But I know the next thing we need to really move on to is nutrition is also really important. It comes back to that preparation. Is if you're eating the right foods for your body, you can actually do a 5K, or you can actually do that run when you need to, when you've got the energy on board to do that. Especially here in the US, it's really easy to find really low quality food for a really low quality price that is really easy to eat. And it's making choices that are different than that can feel really expensive in both time and money. But that really is the fuel we put into our body. It is actually the energy that we are burning. And it's not even, I know quite a few people out there, once again, not an exercise physiologist. I'm not a personal physical trainer either. What I have learned for me is what I eat now isn't going to necessarily work on the exercise I do in an hour. What I eat now is going to actually help the workout I do in 2 days from now. So it's a matter of keeping the nutrition consistent over time, because your body doesn't instantly transform that food that you put into your belly. It takes some time to process it and put it actually to use. So being consistent on your nutrition is also important. So there is as many diets and food nutrition programs on the planet as there are coaches, as there are teachers, and everyone's a little bit different. But this comes back to that personalized part here, is find the nutrition plan that works for you. Some people can burn carbs, there's no tomorrow, and fat, it actually slows them down, and other people it's the other way around. All of us need protein to some degree too. If you're vegan, if you are omnivorous, finding a good quality source of protein is really important. And this requires even more, to me, education than on the fitness side. Because if you are missing in certain nutrients in your regular diet, it can have a detrimental effect on any kind of exercise you're going to do. So it's a matter of, I did end up going through the Wild Fit program, which is pretty much all about nutrition. And Wild Fit with Eric Edmedes, and it is a very particular type of food program. In fact, he doesn't like using the term diet because as he talks about, a diet is the type of food that you eat, not something you go on because you want to lose a couple of pounds. And it really focuses on as close to natural foods as possible. That's his perspective, is get as close to the natural food as possible. And yet at the same time, I know someone who swears that his family in essence is allergic to vegetables, that vegetables actually caused his family to have disease and to die young. So once again, our bodies in general as human beings, us eating plastic is not part of our diet. If you get into the actual plants and proteins and animal products and herbs and what have you that we eat, finding the ones that work best for you. But we are not dung beetles. We don't eat feces. You know, that's not part of what actually helps us grow. But within knowing what human beings eat, finding the spectrum that is going to give you the right fuel for what you're going to do so that you have a quality energy source is really important.
And it's so interesting, Michael, because you mentioned a lot of things. You mentioned our nutrition, it's energy, it's what we feed. Like, this is the matter, the organisms that it will become us. Like you mentioned consistency, it's important for us. And at the end, you mentioned plastic. And one interesting thing is that the reason why plastic takes so long into the environment, and we are finding out that plastic just doesn't go away. It just becomes smaller, becomes microplastic, goes ending up into our blood. It's because there is nothing on Earth, no organism on Earth, microorganisms that evolved alongside with plastic. It's something so new. For us to remember that idea of evolution and how we evolved, it is something so new in the environment that nothing digests it. So it just becomes smaller to a particle level, and nothing in our environment yet. There are some research on fungi and things like that can help with this, but nothing learned naturally to digest plastic. So it ends up in our body. If you don't know about microplastic, we can take a look, we can link something, but we need to understand these things because they are happening, they are influencing us. And the same way that we are introducing things that are not familiar to our organism, the collective organism of Earth, and it just doesn't process them, we are forgetting of things that are important. I remember that we recorded something on health and fitness with Suzanne. It was an interview that you recorded with her and that you done with her. And she mentions a lot of diets and things like that. We will put a video on the card here for you guys to see, for you all to see. And I remember that you made a question related to this about where she answered about the carnivore diet and things like that. She said that there are those options, that it's a personalized thing. It's specific to our bodies. And I do believe that this relates with things like mushrooms that we are not eating anymore. And we evolved alongside mushrooms, knowing which ones to eat, which ones not to eat. It's an entire different kingdom, an entire type of organism, different, with bacteria and viruses that live with them, that we are just not putting anymore inside our bodies. And we are finding out that despite things like that, like milk that we put through a process where all the bacteria in the milk is taken out, there are some people that like to drink raw milk because they have important bacteria for our organism. Why don't we do that anymore? Because doing this process involves the risk of eventually getting some very harmful bacteria that could every year kill a few people. So we rather not do that, not take that risk. I don't know where I sit into this. I'm more to the kind of person that thinks that these things are natural. They bring great sorrow and suffering to families and things like that. But how millions of people consume milk? So I think this is natural, but it's not for me to decide. It's something that as a community, as society, we decided that it's better to give up on this healthy bacteria that we can get from the substance and keep away this very harmful stuff. I don't know about that, Mike. I don't know if you have any opinions on that, but I think that this is something that we as humanity should reflect further and not just cut this important stuff from our diets.
So milk is one of those things that it's like being a meat eater. If you're vegan, you don't do either. So there is so many possible benefits, sure. And there's also a lot of detriment as well to drinking cow's milk. The one thing that I remember the most is, once again, is back in that Wild Fit diet that Eric Edmeades talks about. Milk is intended to be a fuel source for baby cows to go from 60 pounds to 600 pounds. And it is for cows. Us drinking human milk, if we were to think about drinking human milk at the age of 20, people would go, ew, gross. So why is it then okay for us to drink the milk of a cow, a different species, when we're actually an adult? It's just something to play with your head there. It is culture. But it's a matter of, once again, there are people whose body is lactose intolerant. And some have a really extreme reaction to lactose, which is in most cow's milk. And other people are still allergic, but the reaction is not as extreme. And once again, it's a matter of checking in with yourself after you eat stuff and being mindful of how you feel after you consume it is really, I think, the important part here. And you were talking earlier about you had all this energy, which is great. And many times with the foods that we eat, it has a tendency to dampen that energy because digestion actually takes some of the most energy in our body to digest and transform that food into energy. It takes almost as much energy, sometimes more energy than the food itself is going to get. So once again, so there are some foods that are a net minus on the energy side of things. I believe that grapefruit was one of the ones that was talked about for a while here in the US. There was a fad diet of the grapefruit diet so that you can actually lose a bunch of weight, is just eat only grapefruit, or a majority of your diet is grapefruit. So you get nutrients, but it requires more energy to burn it and turn it into fuel than you actually get from it. But there's also this idea too of fasting as well, falls into that same range. Is if it's intermittent fasting, if it is fasting for your spiritual practices, if it is going on a detox, if you will, it's another way to look at what energy are you putting in, and are you, especially here in the US where it's an overeater type of society in many places, is how much are you taking in comparison to how much you're storing? So fasting can have the effect, depending on the research that you're looking at, to reset your metabolism, to actually bring in the release of things that are stored away in your body. So Some people find intermittent fasting where they're actually only eating for a small window of the day. And if that's actually in the morning or the evening, once again, it's a matter of finding the rhythm that works best for you. And sometimes maybe only having one meal one day a week can have a boost in your energy. I know that I tend to be more clear whenever I've actually fasted overnight and I start working first thing in the morning.
Interesting. We forget that I believe that there are, I mentioned this a lot. There are so many things we forget. And hunger is so important. We lived so much with hunger, Michael. If you see an animal on the wild, a hunter, like even the herbivores, they don't eat all the time. Like you mentioned, they are not digesting all the time. They are not, it takes too much energy. All the nutrition we put inside is the energy that we use to shape our reality, to manifest the things that we do, to work. Everything is about this nutrition. Like it's the energy, it's the matter that is inside our bodies, and it's the energy as well that we use, that we store. We need to have the drive to go after this energy as well in life. Sometimes we are so satisfied, we are like so comfortable, so accommodated, and we think, why don't I go after the things? Why don't I have motivation? Why don't I have this and that? Life is so, and just moving, this movement that we are talking about in life, this transformation of energy is so hard because we are just not familiar to doing so. So, yes.
And for the longest time on this planet, up until we really had modern society, we needed energy to stay safe and to go get our food. And now to go get your food is you go down to a corner store, you trade some paper or slide a card, and you now have food, and it's in such abundance at this point. We never really get to a place where we're truly have an empty stomach and are really hungry. There's so many other triggers that make us want to eat instead. So,
yeah. And I'm not saying that people should be hungry, that there are like this, I'm not talking about the, let's say, the disease that we have in our society, that people are, they can't feed themselves, they can't afford nutrition. I'm talking about allowing yourself, like Michael said, to spend a few hours without feeling satisfied. Spend a few hours allowing your body to feel the need, like it needs, oh, I'm needing to eat right now. I'm pretty sure that, and even the resetting that you mentioned into fasting, I took a look into fasting and I understood a little bit better about this resetting, Michael. It's extremely important. It can help the body to deal with some diseases because we need to remember the bacteria, everything that is there. And I do believe that if we do this reset, we get rid a lot of old stuff that is not serving us, that is in our body. We get rid of a lot of harmful things that might not be so good for us. And we get what tends to stay is more of the core, what is actually going to help us and everything. And then it restarts and reflourishes. And this can be good to reset our body. It's also a good shock to the body, but everything, like Michael said before, needs to be personalized. If we are going to do fasting, it's good to have an outfitter, a guide. I'm saying the outfitter because our culture, it's like how we like to mention people that are there to help you. Michael is a Life Vision outfitter. That's how we like to see things here. And in this process, this particular process, because some people, they go to more than 30 days, Michael, of fasting. It's required to have a professional there, to have some medical attention, someone watching, taking blood, doing some exams, because people may die. And the more that we might not like to talk about these situations, we want to help people and things like that. And sometimes we like to put things on the dark corners, right, Michael? But not here. We mentioned the things that are important. It's necessary to have medical attention because it's something that can go wrong. But it's just an alternative. Some people do fasting. Take a look at those things as well. I'm going to mention as well, Michael, in the description, some links about the fasting and things like that. just if you got curious. But it's all about energy and the digestion. And one last thing I want to mention before we move on this is what you mentioned about some foods that they actually take energy from you. Meat takes a lot of energy to be digested. I love meat, but I am reducing a lot of the consumption I have on meat. And some things they increase, Michael. There is a lot of studies related to that. And it's because we don't, our bodies, they were not created to be digesting food so often. Remember what I said about hunger. We didn't evolve eating so much, like waking up and eating, then like hobbits. Where is my second breakfast and my third breakfast and things like that? That's not our evolution. We didn't evolve to do that. We evolved getting a few things here, eating, saving a little bit, eating with taking to the tribe, and then capturing a big prey and eating meat. I don't know how many times a week, but certainly not every. Catching a strong animal certainly didn't happen every day. And we need to remember that because we do eat meat. It's important to us. We need fat. We need like balance on things. And we don't need to be eating the same thing. We need to diversify a little bit because our body needs so much different substances, but it's necessary to understand where we come from and how our body works. And it was not eating all the time. It was not eating the quantity of meat that we eat every day.
Absolutely. And it's worth experimenting, and it's worth getting educated, and it's worth getting someone on your team that can actually help you work through this. So if it is a nutritionist, if it's a doctor, if it's an online program, something that can help you determine what is the best for your state of being, as well as the way that your body was built. So for some people, meat totally tears them up. And for others, Bruno had mentioned the carnivore diet, where all you eat is meat. And that seems like a literally overkill. At the same time, I think we need to really look at what works best for us and in the timing that's necessary. Because as you said, we didn't evolve as hobbits. It's a running joke between my wife and I of she's much more of a grazer, and she needs breakfast and second breakfast and lunch and supper and afternoon tea and dinner, and it's just the way that her body is wired. Her metabolism, that's the way it works, is that it actually needs more of a trickle in of energy rather than the big load of a couple of meals during the day. So the other aspect of this, we've talked a lot about the foods that we take in, but the other part too, which Bruno and I think when we're off camera, we're doing it, is hydration is also a huge aspect of this. And it's weird when we start looking at how human beings used to get water. We didn't used to carry around big bottles of water with us because, well, we just created these in the last couple of years, or last, several decades, last 100 years, or pottery in the last 1,000, 2,000 years versus the thousands of years before that. We would get a lot of our fluids, a lot of our hydration from the foods that we ate, from the vegetation, from the fruits, etc., to get hydration. But it is my biggest challenge always is that I've heard half an ounce of water per pound of body weight is the way that they have laid out the equation here. And unfortunately for me, at this point where I'm at, it means that I'm either drinking or I'm going to the bathroom, because that's a lot of water for me. And finding, once again, the right mix that actually makes that work for you. But having water on board helps us flush toxins. It actually helps lubricate joints. It actually helps to ensure that we have enough fluid inside of our veins when you're drinking quality water. When you're actually getting on board, it is super important. I think us keeping that in mind is really helpful all the way around. And unless you are in an extreme experience, such as you are running a marathon and you're also downing gallons of water, in general, water cannot be toxic to you. It's whenever we actually reduce the electrolytes in our body, the minerals and the nutrients we have in our blood, that water, you can actually drink too much water. There is a lot of research on this too to make sure that people are getting on board. I know that when, as an example, when you are sick enough that you are vomiting a lot, you end up taking a lot of the fluid out of your body. You get dehydrated, and as much because you don't have fluid in your body as it is that your electrolytes drop. So they say many times, if you actually, once you actually get your stomach to settle, to take on something like a Gatorade or something that actually has electrolytes in it with the water is better than taking straight water, because then you can actually get those nutrients back into your system. Also, if you're a person who drinks a lot of alcohol, my understanding is that also dehydrates you. So many times that hangover effect that you have is because you've had the alcohol in your blood and in your brain, but it's also because you've dehydrated yourself. So drinking water while you're drinking alcohol can offset a lot of that. I've certainly found that to help me as well. Not that I drink very often or to a point where I get dehydrated, but it certainly has helped me in the past to stay above board.
And this, sorry, this compensation that you mentioned is very important. For example, I had this food poisoning that I went to the hospital. I woke up vomiting, and I then had a swallowing in my throat, like we call it uvula here. It's the thing that hangs in your throat. It was very big. So when I was at the hospital in this situation, the lady went to put the access for my veins in my arm, and it even got away, and then the fluid got stuck into my arm. My arm swelled, like I stayed with this like big volume here, but then they took it out and they put it in my hand a second time. And the thing is that the nurse then she asked if I drink too much or if I smoke, and I was like, oh, I smoke. And she went to say, oh, people that smoke a lot, they actually have problems with hydrating their body. And she said she could notice that, Michael, for the hard time that she was having to put the access on my veins, for you to have an idea. So we need to take care of these leakages, like it's like leakages, some things that we do. If we are taking protein shakes, it is dehydrated food. So we need to compensate that. We need to drink a lot of water, because then it's not going to damage our kidneys. And we need to be paying attention to this balancing thing. This balancing is very important. So we need to be aware of what we are putting inside our bodies. And if we are putting something like smoking a cigarette that greatly dehydrates your body, then we need to put water in. If we are putting something like dehydrated food that can greatly take a lot of the fluids that we have in our body, we need to compensate things and balance that. This balance is also very important.
Absolutely. And each of the things that Bruno had mentioned, seek someone for professional help around that. You know, not being able to find your vein when you're dehydrated, that tends to be a severe symptom of dehydration, is when you can't find the vein to even put fluid in. Because if you imagine that your veins actually are a tube, and when it has less fluid in it, they get smaller. So it's harder to find them, and they tend to be a little more. So I've never had the wonderful opportunity to give someone an IV, but I was married to a nurse for a while, as well as in school, we actually talked a fair amount about fluids, hydration, blood flow, things like that. And once again, staying hydrated is going to be really important, because it's, at least for me, it's easier to drink it than it is to actually get a vein in my arm with fluid to get pumped into it. So the more you can do to stay on the top side of that, the better. But that is our body's reaction to whenever things are bad. Is if you put in food in your body that actually made you not feel well, what is your body going to do? It's going to close your throat, so you stop taking on that food that's bad for you. So it's listening to your body. And I feel that, at least in society right now, very few people really listen to what their body does. And I've been guilty of that myself, is listen to your body. There's so much feedback that we get that I know that I've learned to just ignore. And when we're actually slowing down and being mindful about what we're eating, the movement that we're doing, the breathing practices that we're getting involved in, we get more in touch with that. And we can feel whenever we put something into our body, we do something with our body that doesn't take us towards where we want to go, isn't heading us towards our purpose. We can feel it when you slow down enough, rather than I've got to get to the next thing, I've got to get to the next thing, I've got to get the next thing. Instead, it's a matter of slowing down and being much more intentional. So you can, it's like one of my favorite teachers talks about is slowing down to speed up. Is slow is accurate and accurate is fast. There's a couple of other things too that I want to talk about here as well in this whole idea of health and fitness as well. Bruno talked about this a little bit earlier, is challenging yourself to the next level. If it is that if you're going to go for a walk, is walk 10 minutes more, and if you're out for a 10-minute walk another 5 minutes more, to challenge your body to trigger that adaptation response. One of the things that
respecting our limits, though, remember that.
Right, yes.
And have proper follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand your body, like the mechanics of it, don't hurt yourself.
This is the 4% shift that we're talking about, 4% growth, not 50%. But one of the things that I've started doing here is taking a cold shower. It's one of the things that the Wim Hof method talks about. There's also other people who talk about the positive effects of taking a cold shower rather than a hot or warm shower. I know for my daughter, she actually got the wonderful opportunity to travel to Africa, and there was no such thing as a warm shower. You actually got whatever the water temperature was, and you have to address that. And for those people out there who don't have access to hot water, I get that too. It's this luxury that we have in the US, and now I'm actually going to the opposite, because what it's going to do is it's going to trigger an adaptation response. So before we started recording today, Bruno and I were talking about how cold it is here in the US. It is 2 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 16 Celsius here in New Hampshire right now. And he asked if I like the cold. And I'm like, I don't really mind it that much, but I've been taking a cold shower whenever I take a shower, probably 80% of the time for the last 2.5 years. It's preparing my body to adapt to the cold, to the point that I'll walk out in the snow and barefoot sometimes. Not as much as Wim Hof, where I've climbed a mountain barefoot wearing only a pair of shorts. I'm not that extreme, but it's one way you can actually trigger your body to have a different immune response as well as a different mental response, because you've actually challenged yourself for something. I will never do that is very different than I've done that and I've seen the benefits, or I've done that and I don't see the benefits. It's triggering more the idea of what you can overcome. It can be 10 seconds in a cold shower. See how you do. What I tend to do is I'll go into the shower and I'll turn it on, and I'll step into the water as soon as it's turned on, even though it takes almost 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes for it to warm up here in the house. So then I get the benefit of the cold shower, and I then warm up afterwards. But it is those small shifts that can make a difference in how you treat your body.
You also mentioned something, Michael, that I remember right now about the health and fitness category, which is that how it is easy for us to do something and get tangible results. I really like that, because that is actually true. Like, it's not so fast. It's not so fast as some people might like, but it's something that I learned to be true is, first, you got to stick some 3 months into an activity to actually start to tap into it. And every physical activity that I can think right now, you actually get a good hand of it after some 2 years. If you go to the gym every week, 3 days a week, and you just go 3 days a week and you work out for half an hour, 1 hour. I'm not a physical trainer, but I am sure that in 2 years, you will have a difference in your body. It will be extremely noticeable. It will be extremely positive. It will probably change your life, give you a lot of energy, disposition, and make your body better, stronger, and more. Yeah.
With the tangible results thing is, yes, you're going to see some of those longer term benefits. I have certainly experienced that. There's also this thing of the shorter term benefits of clarity of mind and focus after you've done 3 workouts in a week. I think that you may not see huge weight loss or huge increase in your output and your endurance over a week, but the energy you actually feel after you've been doing it even for a week, that's where, to me, you see the fastest tangible result in comparison to any of the other categories. Yes, I can come up with a great financial idea, but it's going to take me at least 3 to 6 months to really act on that to a point where it's actually making. So I think that being in it for the long term is really important. But I also know for me is celebrating the little wins along the way provides me motivation and momentum in order to actually continue going. So if I were to be doing a workout routine and choosing a particular nutrition plan for me, and I see no results in the first month or so, I'm going to stop doing it, because for me, I don't necessarily have the discipline to stay on that. I need to find those little wins that I can celebrate along the way. Even if it is half a pound, even if it is 2 minutes longer to be able to hold, a plank, or maybe even 10 seconds holding a plank more, to see those kind of results. And to me, in the health and fitness category, it's one of the places where we can see results faster.
And even in the day, if you go to the gym or if you go to exercise, I go to jiu-jitsu. It's good, you feel good. There is a mental pleasure, there is a physical pleasure, there is endorphin. It appears that in women, this is a different effect. I have found a page on Instagram where they talk about being high on endorphin, and they mention a lot that women, they feel sexual pleasure when they are exercising. They can feel like, I don't know if it's every woman that is on the gym. I do find out in this page, women talking, that when they are exercising, they might feel actually sexual pleasure. It's something on their bodies. And this is interesting because how many people, they just don't have a physical activity. And we just don't know about that. We just don't know that it is good for the mind, it's good for the body, it can be pleasurable, it can help us live better lives, it will extend our lifespans. But it all depends on being aligned with our purpose, like you mentioned before. What is it that you want to do? Do you want to feel good? You can go to the gym and feel good. Do you wish to become more physically fit? You can go to the gym and become. Do you want to go on a hike, on a journey, and have a experience? It is another thing. All those things are like different. They can be personalized and tailored for ourselves, and they are very tangible things that we can do. Like, you need to get out there and do something. If you wish to become 10 seconds longer on the plank, you need to get out on the ground and get on the plank. So it's tangible actions. It might, we need to listen to our body, like Michael say, if we wish to hear and to understand, to capture the benefits from the moment, because they are there. They might not appear in the beginning, because if we are sedentary and we just go out to the gym or to run, we'll suffer a lot, actually. Just by changing our nutrition, we can suffer. Like, I went to a vegan restaurant, Michael, for the first time, and I felt so weird. It was so much flavor. I didn't understand as such, but it was like the food, it was like the word, I was like, I didn't need so much. I don't know the word, but when you're like, oh, it's okay. But then I decided to go again the next week, and then I went again, and then I went again. And I love vegan food now because it has so much flavor. But in the beginning, when I first felt so much flavor in my food, it was too much. So pleasurable things that we can find pleasure in the future, they might not be so much pleasurable depending on where we are in life. But it's all that thing about the purpose, aligning things with our purpose and knowing what is best for us, and testing, trying, and getting to know what fits us, what is best for us.
Agreed that testing and finding the right equation for you, the right variables that are involved that will actually allow you to get to where you want to go. But we started this conversation on, this is the new year. It's when many people make New Year's resolutions, which I don't remember the stats, but I remember they're really bad of the number of people who've thrown out their New Year's resolution by January 15th or February 1st is huge. That this idea of a resolution is very different than making a commitment to yourself. In fact, I was even talking with my coach a couple weeks ago, and she said, a promise is more important than a commitment because you can actually blow off a commitment. And I had to respond is, to me, a commitment is what makes a promise into reality. As I mentioned before, it's a fortune cookie I have actually got taped to my monitor. Is commitment is really important to me. That commitment with the wider idea of why we're going there is I want to be able to hike a 10,000 foot mountain. That would be the commitment. And then from there, I backtrack. What do I need to do in order to get to that commitment? What are the steps I need to take? What are the actions? And Rich Lifton talks about this as well, is that a goal is not a place to get to, it's a place to come from, which I really appreciate. Is the idea of, if I'm going to climb a 10,000 foot mountain, what kind of person climbs a 10,000 foot mountain? And from that mindset of doing that, what are the choices I make today in order to get there? What are the actions that a person who would do that are going to take? That's where we've talked about preparation. That's where the commitment comes in. As what are you committing to? Is it that you want to be able to go horseback riding or zip lining or climbing a mountain or skydiving or bungee jumping or whatever adventure it is that actually blows your kilt up? Is figure out what that thing is and then start working towards it. Start taking the actions that are going to get you there. And then tracking your progress on this too is the second part of the commitment. Is the third stage then is accountability. Is not just weight, not just calories. Those two things are great things to track, but it's also the other things. Do your pants and your shirt fit better? Measuring, your arms and your waist and your hips and your thighs. It is the more than just the calories, it's also the macros, if you can get into that, of the protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Are you getting the nutrition you need? It's, are you enjoying your food? Like Bruno said, is that savory taste that you get when you actually are eating well-prepared food rather than packaged stuff pumped full of sugar. Getting your taste buds to really taste the various flavors and the various spices that you're having. Are you enjoying that more? You may find that Big Mac may actually serve for that purpose in that moment, but there really is not a lot of real taste there versus something that you cook yourself, or that you find a quality farm to table restaurant near you, or someone that actually cooks fresh food, that there's so much more flavor. Even out here in the US, I saw this even 30 years ago, is if you buy a strawberry in California, they were actually, growing these huge strawberries. They'd be bigger than a golf ball, sometimes the size of a baseball, almost in the size of these strawberries. They're gorgeously red and they're huge, but they're dry and they have no taste. Versus these little ones that were growing in Washington at the time, they were almost the color of my shirt. And they would drip fluid whenever you bit into them, and you could just taste strawberry. But we've gotten into this level now where everybody wants to produce more and more for cheaper. So we have a lot of food that has very little nutrition in it and very little flavor.
And bigger and prettier and sellable.
Right.
We need to keep in our minds that for most of the people and most of the institutions, the profit is the goal. So there are many things that we are buying that are not so good, and we buy them just because there is demand. Like the meat industry, for example, we don't need that much meat. We produce too much meat. And why do we produce too much meat? Because the industry can sell, and the more the industry can sell, more demand they can create. They create because they have resources. So the more resources they create, more demand. And as the demand increases, they produce more and they produce more and they produce more and they produce more. Yes, Michael?
What we're producing is more obese people, because we're actually getting people to eat more and stuff that's not necessarily good for you, that is in turn makes you hungry without really needing more nutrients and nutrients deficient foods. So it really is a matter of finding those nutrients for you in the ways that are going to get them into your body the most efficient. And actually, it's one of the things that I hear fairly often is eating healthy is expensive. However, when you're eating healthy, you don't need to eat nearly as much because it's more nutrient
Yeah.
dense. It is actually more of what your body needs.
And not only that, but we can eat a lot, like we say in this episode. We can eat a lot and not have a good nutrition. And exactly what you said, Michael. If we're eating properly, we'll probably need to eat less because then we'll be eating the proper things. We'll be taking care of our body and what it's requiring instead of just like putting a pound of meat inside the body into a meal with a lot of things. And one thing that I notice a lot, Michael, in the pictures that I see from people from abroad and even movies, like it's for the assets of nutrition for the wealthy economy. Your food is completely different from ours. Like every meal that I see in a movie, I don't know if it's the movies that I watch, it's very green, colorful. You guys eat a lot of salads. I don't know if that's reality or it's just television, but you guys eat a lot of salads and there is a variety. We don't have that here. We eat rice and beans and pasta and meat. If I go into any restaurant, Michael, and I take pictures, you will find the plates weird. People don't eat vegetables, things like that. They get a bunch of rice, they get a bunch of pasta, they get a bunch of beans, and they get a piece of meat. And some people, they get some slices of tomatoes and like a little salad. Salad is usually tomatoes, pimentones, I don't know the name, and it's the green one, and onions. Like pimentones, let me see pimenton in English. It's bell pepper.
Gotcha.
We usually eat the green one. There is green, yellow, and red. We usually eat it. That's the salad. Like some alface as well. Let me see here, alface. Lettuce, some lettuce as well usually goes. But it's that, Michael. We don't have a lot of variety. And sometimes when I go to a restaurant, I like to go into restaurants that they have you can serve yourself because if doesn't matter, Michael, where I know we are a little bit off topic right now, I'll go back to wrap up, but doesn't matter. I can go to a restaurant and I can explain so well in so much detail. I want just a little bit of rice, just a little bit of pasta, and I want salad. Like you can put more than half of my plate in salads and vegetables. It always comes 2/3 rice, beans, and pasta. They just don't understand because it's not in their perspective. I got one time a restaurant when I got there, they were not in this, you didn't serve yourself, you asked for a plate, but I got the plate the way I wanted because the nutritionist listened to me ordering and she came to me and she said, I can make your plate for you. Let me make your plate for you because she understood that the guy was not good at it. And there is this difference there.
And as you said earlier when we were talking about nutrition, is that it is a lot about what can sell. Rice and beans are really cheap in comparison to all that other vegetation.
Not at the moment.
Relatively cheap, but there is a fair amount of variety, I know, in many of the places that we go to here, and you can actually do the whole salad thing. Yes, salad is a big thing for what we do, and it tends to be lettuce and tomatoes and onions for us, bell pepper, but the base is a greens. It's arugula and kale and spinach and
I eat a lot of rugula. Here we call rucola because there is a great concentration of protein. And the restaurant that I go, they have it. So I get a lot of it. I get a lot of greens. Yeah, it's good.
so, and that is really dependent on, that's a culture thing. That's also an access thing as well. So once again, want to wrap up some of this, and knowing what you're eating, variety is really important. I know in nutrition as well. If you can do it, if you're eating rice and beans every day, I can't imagine what my body would do if I was eating rice and beans and pasta every day with a slab of meat. So, and it's odd because we do have Brazilian steakhouses here, which it's a high-end thing that we go and do. And at least the one that's here in the town nearest me has a full salad bar, so you can actually serve yourself a salad with all of these things. But the big thing is the meat there.
I'm not saying that people don't eat good here in Brazil, but there is a lot of segregation here in Brazil. There are people that live very wealthy lifestyles. There are people that have access to a lot of things. And then there is half the population that lives below the poverty line. So usually I'm in contact more with these people that are like around where I live, in the restaurants. And the restaurants that I go, they are not high-end restaurants. So I usually notice these things. And yes, there are some people here, Michael, that they have a very variety and things like that. I mentioned developed economies because of movies and series that I watch, and it always calls my attention. It's something of cinema, I know, but it's something that this is something that calls my attention. I always get enchanted by how well you guys eat because I have this desire to eat better. And I even think about, Michael, the Michelin star restaurants. I keep thinking, we were mentioning before you mentioned something, and I was like, dude, I must be missing something because there must be so much flavor. In order for people to consider these places, these chefs so special. And the same way that when I didn't went to the vegan restaurant before and I went there and it felt weird, I wonder, would I feel weird? Would I even notice how special it is a Michelin star meal? Do I have the palate? But now we are just drifting too far. Sorry, I do tend to do that. This is a sign, Mike. This is a sign for us to wrap up.
Yes, it is a tighter up. So thank you for actually having this conversation with me. It is important, I think, in the cycle that we're going into the year that we get this dialed in, because depending on how much energy we have determines how we respond emotionally to things. How well we feel in our body has a tendency to determine how well we bring in new information and create new information. Has a huge impact on our social relationships with people when we're in a space where we are actually serving our bodies well, tends to show to people what we're willing to put in our bodies. So it has an impact on all of the categories of our life. It is extremely foundational. So I really wanted to talk about that today so we can, start this year off on a better foot than the last couple of years, because the last couple of years have been major nightmare and catastrophe.
And there is a lot of changes yet to come
Yep.
about this. As we are seeing, there is a lot of changes yet to come.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up today. So I'm curious, for those of you who are listening, is what are your health and fitness goals for this year? What are your nutrition plans? What is your movement plans? Are you doing anything in particular this year that you've said, this year is the year for this? This is the year that I'm going to be able to do that. Is there something that is a goal that you're trying to accomplish that you are committing to get to? For me, I've actually got a weight goal that I want to get to. And that's one of the key things for me this year. And for me, it's actually to get down to 300 pounds. Being 6'5" and 300 pounds is still overweight, but that's the destination for this coming 12 months. Knowing that then there's further growth, if you will, further on. So I'm curious.
How many pounds do you?
I went to the doctor 2 weeks ago and I was at 370. So it's a 70-pound drop. And I'm already down in 2 weeks, 7 pounds. So it certainly is a considerable difference just by actually being more mindful of it. And I've started tracking what I eat specifically. So it's a considerable goal. My doctor wants to see me lose at least 10%. So then my goal is 20. But it's all in the progress of getting to a better place. Though people tell me people don't know that I'm actually that heavy, because I guess I carry it well, but I want to feel better on my body. I want to be able to move easier. And I'm planning on being able to climb more often. I like getting out on my bicycle. I like cycling, and I didn't really do that much this past year. So it's a matter of getting back into some of those things that I enjoy doing more often. So that's the goal. That's the commitment. Do you have anything in particular that you have for a goal for this coming year around that?
Oh, stop smoking would be good. I already stopped smoking once. but then I went back when I stopped training jiu-jitsu. Now I'm training back again. I need to put together some actions in order to stop smoking. Yeah, particularly related to health. I would love to be more attuned to it. Like I need to make some exams, blood exams, it's been a while, things like that. So I would like to be more aware of how my health is and maybe even get a health plan, something like that. It's more related of taking care than actually doing something that because I already do exercise regularly, I do a lot of activities that keep my heart rate up. I'm satisfied with this area, like jiu-jitsu helps me a lot with it. I just need to take more care of my health. And probably I will need to make some adjustments in my nutrition as well, like taking care, but I need to take care to see what is the deficits because I probably am having some deficits. Like I can see in my body, like you said, listen to your body. That even my mother, talks about my color. Sometimes she say your color is weird. You had a better color. Are you eating well? And things like that. That I'm noticing that actually, yeah, I might be with some deficit. I need to take care of that. So that would be nice for this year to be more aware of what's going on. And even if there is nothing wrong with my body, it's good to give a check because then we will know that there is nothing wrong. It's everything okay.
Absolutely. Make sure that your levels are where they're supposed to be. So getting your
Yes.
labs done is actually really important. So knowing where you're at, and awesome. So with that, I do want to wrap up, and I am curious what our listeners have for their goals for this year. And if you haven't had a chance to really scope that, spend some time. Pick one biomarker that you want to change. If it is your sleep, if it is your nutrition, if it is your movement, if it is your blood pressure, pick something you're going to work on. And if you need help discovering that, we know some people who can help you with that. So you can reach us at elevateyourbest.com. You can actually continue following us here on YouTube and listening to us, and leave a comment if it actually is relevant. Subscribe if you want to hear more about this, and we look forward to seeing you in this coming year. This is Michael Danklas of Elevate Your Best.
And this is Bruno Martins. Bye bye and see you next episode.
See you next week.